Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trylko from the Sons of UCF, joined by Eric Lopez of the Black and Gold Banneret. Welcome to a live edition of Around the Kingdom. Elo, hello.
Hello, Trace, on this historic edition of Around the Kingdom, the fastest UCF show around. We'll still try to be fast on the live show. Gus is gone. He's in Tallahassee. What is his legacy, and what does it mean for UCF as they look for a football coach? Could we be close to a frost warning? Plus, who will be the next head coach? Who does Trace want to be the next UCF head coach? We'll break it all down on this edition of Around the Kingdom.
Before we get going with all of that, Elo, let's welcome in the third member of our team. He is Adam Eaton from the Sons of UCF, keeps an eye on the clock, keeps us on our toes. And Adam, we're going to try and engage the audience in this live edition of Around the Kingdom.
We sure are. Greetings, friends. I'm down here in the corner, but you are going to be center stage tonight, everybody. So we have one segment that you will pick the topic for these two knuckleheads to debate. So throughout the chat, I'll be monitoring throughout the night. So get your questions in now and what you want to hear these two guys talk about, and we will throw that on screen and make them do it live. So Bill O'Reilly style, they're going to do it live. So let us know what your topics are, and I will throw them on screen for you.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Check back with you soon. We go live because we're trying to stay nimble, and it's a stunt. All stunt programming this week with the Sons of UCF. Elo staying nimble with this coaching search. It is a Wednesday as we go live. Still no new head coach for the UCF Knights. What's going on, Elo? And who do you want to see hired by UCF?
No, nothing's going on right now. It's just a lot of speculation and rumor and innuendo. We've had a name be rumored each day. I think we had
each day.
DJ Kenny was rumored on Monday. A lot of people thought he could be the guy. There was the Jamie Chadwell, people reaching out to me about him. We had Scott Frost possibly being contacted and interested. Heck, we haven't even Lincoln Riley speculation. Trace, I know it's a fascinating. It's really a lot of smoke screen, a lot of wondering, and really still no head coach. And I don't know if we will get one for another couple more days.
Couple more days, perhaps, because athletics director Terry Mohajir waiting to see how some championship games play out. Tulane in that American Athletic Conference championship game. I know you're asking the Elo. You've been asking for days. Who do I want? I would say Tulane's head coach John Sumrall would be my choice, but my second one, and that name hasn't gotten floated a lot yet, would be Silverfield of Memphis. It would be my number two choice.
You and I are on the same page. Those are my top two choices.
Really? In 1-2 order?
Yes.
Those were your two?
Not joking there. Interestingly, the problem is both of them are also on the list for North Carolina. So it could be where UCF has to wait to see who North Carolina picks and then have to settle their quote-unquote. Interesting, I was told today by a source, John Sumrall's buyout lowers if he wins the conference championship game on Friday night. So that's something to keep in mind for potential suitors there. But I think this is a very typical smokescreen. I think if the longer this goes, the more likely is that the UCF's next head coach is likely coaching this weekend in a championship game. Because otherwise, Trace, if that coach was available now, you just hire him now on signing day.
I.e. Scott Frost. Why wait if you could have had him before early signing day?
Although, in fairness to Scott, he is busy hanging out with Sean McVay and the LA Rams. So you never know. You know, he could be under the radar there for all we know. Of course, it's a big, important time at UCF for Terry Mohajir, the AD. We have not heard from Terry Mohajir. He is out there right now handling the recruits, and he's obviously searching for a football coach. Trace, how important is this hire for Terry Mohajir?
Well, Terry Mohajir's future with UCF depends on the success of the hire of the football coach. I mean, you can look back now over these 4 years of Gus Malzahn, swing and a miss, right? Year-over-year decline despite the transition. And, there's building projects and fundraising going on. So there are some positives, but the coaching hires have been a mixed bag. He's already, as we'll talk about later, hired and fired a volleyball coach. Some question remains about women's basketball's hire, but the football one is the most high profile, Elo. He must get this one right.
Football hires are always the most important if you're an athletic director. I've never heard, though, I love the term, like, this is an important hire. This is the biggest hire. When is a football hire not important? I've never heard somebody say, you know what, that football hire is not that important. It's okay.
Well, Terry Mohajir's still in his job despite Gus Malzahn not being in his, and that might not have sat well with Dr. Cartwright or other, board of trustees, et cetera. So he maintains his job despite Gus Malzahn moving on. So important, he can't get it wrong.
I don't think he can get it wrong. I think it's important for the program not to get it wrong. This will be the second head coach in the Power Conference. If you whiff on this hire, you run the risk of this program being an also rant in the power conference. Remember the days, Trace, when we were in the G5 and we were laughing at all those schools, the Mississippis of the world. They're so mediocre and earning a check. That could be us if we don't get this right, to your point. That's what's at stake here for everybody involved for UCF, not just Terry. I think it's a lot in line. I would include everybody involved in UCF. I don't think this is just an important hire for Terry. Would you not agree with that? There's more people at stake here. Cartwright, president, I mean, he wants this hire to work out too.
Well, yeah, and for the money to keep flowing with the donors that
Correct.
impact all programs, you got to get this right. We saw Athletic Director Terry Mahajer resurface on early signing day with a video out there talking to a recruit. But UCF been very quiet. The statement, very quiet about Gus Malzahn, not even saying resigning. What more should UCF have done this week from a media relations, a public relations standpoint, Elo?
Probably write a lengthier statement on both departures and say
signed by Terry Mahajer,
signatures or whatever, but just a little lengthier. That's all. I would say that. I know there are people that are saying that he should have come out and said something after Gus' departure. My question to you, Trace, what do you think he would have told you if he came out with a presser about after Gus? You guys would have probably dogged him because he would have given you a lot of non-answers, and you're saying, "Oh, he gave us a lot of non-answers." I think when he's going to have to talk is after this hire, kind of like he did with baseball, where he answered a lot of questions. I think that's when you're going to hear from him. But I don't know if him talking now really does any good. But you disagree.
Well, the contrast is West Virginia's athletic director held court with the media for about an hour or so, right? So there is that opportunity. He has not done much in the way of media opportunities, and whenever the football coach is announced, he's going to announce that coach. But will he take questions or just defer and turn things over to his new football coach hire? He may box out the media and not answer any questions about the way things have gone down over the last couple of weeks.
To be determined. We'll find out once that hire is made and they hold the press conference. Of course, we have a new head coach because Gus Malzahn is no longer here. Resigned on Saturday. First reported by ESPN Pete Thamel that he was going to be the offensive coordinator at Florida State. Trace, we haven't heard your official reaction to this. What's your thoughts on the Gus era being over in 4 years?
Well, we talked about it a week ago. I could not imagine how he was going to rebuild this team and what this was going to look like going into spring ball, going into the portal season. You heard me use the word breach of trust with the fan base. I don't know that the fan base would have jumped back on board the Gus bus for another ride. I think he had a serious rebuild ahead of him with no patience on the part of donors and fans. He looked for a new opportunity. I wish he and his family all the best. And, we're going to talk about his legacy here in a moment. I think there was great promise in the hire of Gus Malzahn, and I don't know that UCF is in a lot different space some 4 years later.
Offensive coordinator at Florida State going with his protege, Mike Norvell there. Clearly an exit strategy. It was reported in the paywall a couple weeks ago on War Chant by Gene Williams and Ira Schoffel, which is about as good as it gets when it comes to Florida State coverage. They said that Gus Malzahn was in the mix for the offensive coordinator's job alongside Brandon Marion of UNLV.
Whoa, you're saying it wasn't decided on Saturday? You mean that Utah game didn't determine anything, Elo?
I don't think Mike Norvell just randomly called him after the Utah game and said, "Hey, I saw it was a rough game there. Are you interested in this job?" I think this was kind of talked about. And listen, if you're Gus, I think he saw the writing on the wall. He certainly heard it from the fans that wanted him fired. Resources, certainly a question mark moving forward. You have to rebuild this roster next year. How are you going to do that with the fans not having the trust to donate to your roster? And I think Gus realized, hey, maybe it's time to part ways here and get out here and start fresh and just call plays, which is what I enjoyed, Trace. I'm tired of people questioning my play calling. That's what Gus is probably thinking in his head. He'll get to do that at Florida State, and he's bringing some of the UCF recruits and maybe some of the UCF coaches with him.
Well, get ready, Gus. The FSU faithful are going to question your play calls soon enough. All right, Elo, 28-24 over 4 years. What will you most remember? The good, the not so good of the Gus Malzahn era at UCF?
Well, I think the two memories that will be the good, winning the Gasparilla Bowl against Florida, beating Florida for the first time ever for this program. That's a big plus for him in his first year. And then probably his last good memory, honestly, is going to be the win against Oklahoma State. First-ranked team they beat as a member of the Big 12 on that day where they ran all over them. Those are the two positives. The negatives, obviously, the way the season's kind of dipped, in particular in 2022, where they had a chance against Navy to maybe lock up an American Conference title game host spot, lost to a bad Navy team, double-digit losses to Colorado, for example, which might have been maybe the beginning of the end for this year in the Gus era. Those are the memories I'll remember.
I would say to you, though, the Gasparilla Bowl, I think quarterback Mikey Keene is going to get more credit in the long run for that victory.
Hey, he's available now, Trace. He's available.
I know he's available. And some are already clamoring for his return. But I think
Christian
he will be the one
Simmons is trying to get him back to UCF. Him and Bailey are trying to get him back on the Pegasus podcast.
I think Mikey Keene will get credit for that one. The Boise State game, the first game in the Gus Malzahn era that went into the wee hours of the morning because of the weather delays, I think that one stands out as well. And the losses, so many of them, you didn't even mention in that, did you? The Baylor loss that was really a wobbly situation. We talked about it after week 3, that win over TCU, come back at home, high-profile matchup with Colorado, big noon kickoff, thud, losing in Gainesville. Those 2 games, very important to the fan base, signaled the beginning of the end for Gus here. I think he's going to be known for not advancing the program, Elo, and I think those losses and those painful losses, plus his bowl record, right, overall at UCF, and now a 4-8 finish, no bowl since 2015, first time since 2015. I think that's what he's going to get saddled with in terms of his legacy at UCF.
Some booms, but some busts, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be part of the era there. Will always be the first head coach to lead UCF in the Big 12. That will be part of the legacy there. But where is this program now post Gus? You mentioned it. What do you think UCF football is right now after Gus in 4 years?
I don't think it's in any different spot, Elo. I mean, I think that all of the booms that came with the recruiting ups, but then, a lot of those guys didn't play. A lot of those guys left via the portal. And I think what we're seeing now, and it's of course no surprise with the number of players signifying that they're going to enter the portal when it opens on the 9th, that's what's going to happen when you change coaches, right? You're going to lose a lot of guys, and you hope, a la an Indiana situation, that you can bring over a lot of players and rebuild as quickly as possible. But I think, Knight fans, if you were frustrated with Gus's work in the portal, get ready. In order to make over this roster, there's going to be a lot of guys coming out of the portal. So I don't know that, certainly from a fundraising standpoint, but I think a lot of the goodwill that Gus had earned dissipated, as you said on Around the Kingdom a couple of weeks ago, how fast everything slid. Just a couple of months, I think he lost a lot of goodwill.
It went UC fast, you could say, during that time. And unfortunately, we didn't see a lot of UC fast on the field. We'll see what the next head coach looks like and if that gets brought back. I will say this from UC. I know a lot of people are saying this program has gone downhill and everything. I'm glad you said it's not is in a similar spot. I would say slightly better because it's in a power conference. But now the challenge for UCF is, what is UCF's identity in football in a power conference? The days of 2017, 2018 don't matter anymore. It used to be you were the darling G5 or the agitator, G5 that can maybe upset the big boys. Well, now you're a big boy. Who are you? Are you like Rutgers of the Big 12? Are you going to be the South Florida of the Big 12 that did nothing in the Big East? Or are you going to be a power program, a relevant program in football in the power conferences? I think that's the question for UCF, and where they're at right now is trying to figure out who are they going to be moving forward in the power conference, Trace.
And back to the earlier topic, why Terry Mohajir must reinvigorate this program and why this hire is so key to that. All right, time to bring back in Adam, time for our silly game and some sort of mystery topic that follows.
Gentlemen, all right, I cannot get to silly game before I tell you about the Cure Bowl, December 20th. We are almost there. Bowl season is upon us, friends. UCF's not going to a bowl game, but you still can. Downtown Orlando on the 20th. A great matchup. We'll figure out what that looks like here later this week. But if you want to get involved, the matchup is always Orlando versus Cancer. So get your tickets now. Go to curebowl.com. Secure your tickets. Beautiful Camping World Stadium, downtown Orlando. There'll be events. There'll be all kinds of things going on. And you'll probably see a good football game. So curebowl.com if you want to get involved, and tell them the Sons of UCF sent you, and enjoy your football. All right, gentlemen, this week's silly game, pretty simple. I have a topic for you. It's agree or disagree. I'll give you a topic. You tell me if you agree with this or disagree. I'll start with you, Eric Lopez. Here's the topic. Terry Mohajir should have used a search firm to find the next head coach for UCF. Do you agree or disagree?
I disagree. How much more money are we going to give search firms to basically give you an answer that you probably could have figured it out on your own? I think in this case with football, I think Terry knows what he wants, and I think he's going to try to get it. I think he's going to call he's called probably a lot of names. I don't think we need to spend money. We don't need to give firms more money just so they can give us a list of names that we could have figured it on our own. They should hire us to do this. If we're going to hire any firm, it's us right here. Right, Trace?
Yeah, the two of us.
Wow. Okay.
I'm not waiting on that call from Terry Mahajer for that work. But I think it's overall kind of a waste of money. But as long as UCF does its due diligence and background checks and make sure that they're getting everything cleaned up and clear on a candidate, I think that is what's most important. I'd like to know, we may not get this from Terry Mahajer, when did he start putting together his list? When did he expect that maybe Gus might be leaving on his own accord or Terry's decision? What kind of names did he have on that list and when? I'd love to know that.
Obviously, we're looking for a new coach, Trace. This starts with you. NIL and revenue sharing are far more important than whoever the coach is going to be. Agree or disagree?
That's an interesting. No, I'll disagree. Those are factors. I've heard people say, I agree with this. You're going to need a coach that can do more with less. So the innovative nature of the coach, their success level prior to being at UCF, I think those are still pretty important factors.
I strongly disagree. Adam, did you not just see what we did with the NIL money to the quarterback position this past year? How did that go? Not too well. We need a coach that can evaluate talent beyond just NIL, because you're going to have to develop players. You're not going to be able to outspend the big teams in the SECs and the Big Tens in the world in recruiting. So I think I disagree that NIL and it's very important. Don't get me wrong, but you need the coach to execute that.
All right. The aforementioned Christian Simmons, Elo, last night on the live Pegasus podcast said, if you allowed him to change the results of 3 UCF football contests, it would absolutely change Gus's tenure at UCF. Do you agree or disagree? If I give you any 3 games, you can change the results. It would absolutely change what Gus will be remembered for here at UCF.
Yes, 100% agree with that. I think if you change the Navy result in 2022, they with the host Tulane, I think they would have beaten Tulane in the home conference championship game and gotten to a New Year's Six bowl. That one game alone changes Gus's reputation completely there. Absolutely. I think if you switch the Baylor result from last year, I think it's a completely different season. So absolutely, I agree with Kristen Simmons on that.
I tend to agree with Christian, but you didn't change the results for this season, Elo, though I don't think Gus would have been on any sort of hot seat had he accomplished things in previous seasons. Still, if you don't change some of the results of this season at 4-8, maybe he leaves anyway, right? So, maybe he's tired and frustrated. It's still the same outcome.
But his legacy's different. The legacy's different. It's not perceived as negative as it is obviously right now.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, this week's Around the Kingdom trivia question. Trace, Elo, shout it out if you know the answer.
We never know the answer.
I know you don't. December 1st was the 6-year anniversary of UCF versus Memphis in the 2018 AAC championship game. Legendarily remembered for the game where everyone wore the lays, Josh Heupel with the angel wings that Elo's doing on screen there, which I never want to see again. Daryl Mack had a great game. But gentlemen, who was UCF's leading rusher that day, and how many yards did he have?
Was it Daryl Mack?
I was thinking Mack, but Killins.
Adrian Killins?
You are both double incorrect. Correct answer, Greg McCrae, criminally underrated. 206 rushing yards that day. We forget about Greg McCrae's performance that day.
Touchdowns, though.
Yeah, that gets lost.
Mack had 4 rushing touchdowns, which obviously set a record that day, but we forget about poor Greg McCrae. And that is a silly game, but I'm not going anywhere, friends, because this is the audience portion of the question. So the audience has been peppering us with questions. I'm putting 3 minutes on the clock here, guys. I'll run through as many of these as I can. Dolly wants to know, what are your thoughts on the Gus farewell Twitter, YouTube space, whatever you want to call it, post?
Elo?
I thought it was very classy. I've heard he's been very classy, called a lot of UCF coaches over the weekend. Talked to him. Even some media people talked to. He called apparently, but I think it was good. I was annoyed by people complaining like, "Oh, where's his letter there? Oh, where he's like, guys, give him time. Give him a couple days. It's a no-win situation." But I thought it was very classy. I think I don't think anybody hates Gus the person. Am I wrong here, Trey? It's the person, not the coach.
Yeah, no, I've not seen anybody say anything about Gus the person. I thought classy statement. I think the frustration was not hearing from Terry Mahajer, the statement that had come out from UCF Athletics, and then a delay in not hearing from Gus. But he needed to wrap things up at Florida State. I liked it better than E.J. Colson's statement for moments after he walked off the field.
My only disappointment is you were not referenced in that letter. You should have been thanked for your quality questions and fair questions.
I think there was a character limit in that box that he put out. So.
All right. Well, speaking of characters, 2 letters, 2 words as the question. Trace, I'll start this with you. If Scott Frost comes at a bargain, why not take a chance?
He is certainly interesting, right? I think it's funny. Robert is one of those that did not like how Scott Frost left. Recruiting data on computers comes to mind. I just don't know if you can come home again. It didn't work for him going at Nebraska. I think he needs another stop somewhere along the line. There is a portion of the fan base that is longing for 2017 all over again. And perhaps 2017 hangs as an albatross around our neck as a reminder of a bygone era now for UCF. I'm not sure you can find lightning in a bottle again as they did in 2017 with Scott Frost.
I don't know about that. Listen, Trace, our favorite comedian is Jerry Seinfeld. If Jerry Seinfeld announced today he was bringing back Seinfeld for a
it
reboot,
wouldn't be as good.
Oh, but you would watch.
No.
You would watch. You'd be excited. Don't give me you wouldn't be excited. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but it couldn't possibly be as good.
It doesn't have to be. It could just be good. That's the point. Scott Frost can make UCF great again. Possibly.
Where has it worked, Elo? Bill Snyder, Kansas State, maybe. Who else?
Second time, correct.
But who else?
I mean, I can't think of Mac Brown had a good run his second time until the end.
Yeah, how'd that work out? What happened?
The end, it didn't work out, but it was good at times. He got to a New Year's Six bowl game. It could work. I'm not saying that's the direction I would go, but if he came back, the alums would be involved. Maybe, hey, alums, go spend some money, by the way. All right, do that. I think boosters would be interested. You would be interested. You're telling me you wouldn't be? That's a heck of a nostalgia story. People like nostalgia these days. There's a reason why the Night Court reboot is one of the top sitcom watch shows because people think of, John Larroquette as Dan Fielding. I'm telling you.
The topics that come up on this show.
That's why you get to Night Court.
I love Night Court. Love Night Court.
My word.
I'm okay bringing him back. I am good with bringing him back. That's why I'm wearing this sweater in honor of Scott.
All right, Elo. Warp Drive. We got to go fast now. Go.
I know it's live. There's even more pressure when it's supposed to tape. Hey, there's a Big 12 title game allegedly coming up this Saturday. Arizona State versus Iowa State at noon at Jerry's World. Boy, plenty of seats available, everybody. Somebody's going to the playoff here, Trace, even though they may not get a bye week. They need some help. They need UNLV to upset Boise in the Mountain West title game. Your thoughts on the Big 12 title game in Jerry's World?
I think it's an interesting matchup. UCF, we play, if we could reverse the results, we mentioned it earlier, close against Arizona State, close against Iowa State. Maybe that changes things a bit in this season for Gus Malzahn. I'm fine with the outcome, whichever one wins. I root for Arizona State. I like that underdog story. Pick 16th in the league, could win it all.
Kenny Dillingham, a Gus protege himself, could be a Gus guy after all, winning a conference title game. Very bizarre to have Iowa State and Arizona State in the Big 12 title.
Nobody had that.
Nobody had that. It'll be interesting how it draws. I like Iowa State. I think Matt Campbell's due to win one of these. I think they beat Arizona State and get a spot in the playoff. That's just me, though.
All right, putting a wrap on things. Adam had UCF over Utah. Didn't work out. Elo, there were 4 wins by the UCF Knights. You had 3 picks. You were 3 for 3. Congratulations. You got all of them. You are a master of this game.
I know my football, ladies and gentlemen. I definitely do. Hey, prop bets. Congrats to you, Trace. But what a dramatic finish to the UCF football season. R.J. Harvey breaking the total touchdown record. Had his second touchdowns with seconds to go from UCF now legend, E.J. Colson.
Yeah, by the way, you were a little snarkier about it. You were a little snarkier about an hour ago when you messaged me, but you only got it with 20 seconds left. A week after I said you only got basketball because they went into triple overtime.
Correct. No booing of KJ because, KJ didn't walk, so you can't boo.
Hey, how about tight end receptions? Randy Pittman with 32 shatters the over-under of 24.5.
Congrats, Cossack Advisor, somewhere upstairs is pleased
sir.
that the tight end was used, probably. All right. This is the weird. We've done some weird prop bets. This is another one. All right. Over under Saturday dinner time, 7:00. Will we know the UCF head football coach, Trace? And who?
Yes. That conference championship game will have been concluded in the American. Yes. With a Monday presser. I need it to be Monday. I got conflicts on Tuesday. This needs to.
What about Sunday? Are you good Sunday? Does that work?
Sunday. I'm good Sunday, but they need to fly the guy in, and Monday presser. Yes.
I agree. I think we'll know by Saturday. So Pete Thamel or somebody like will break it. I do think it's John. I'm still sticking to John Stumbrell. That's what I've said at the beginning. Could be right. I think it's him if Tulane wins the title. Maybe Breck McMurphy will leak it during the game. I'm sticking to that one. Wouldn't that be beautiful, huh? Stick it to Tulane. Bang back there. That's what we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
so,
that's funny. I like that. All right, real quick, Elo. Men's basketball gets back in the win column.
Wait, there's other sports going on? Really?
Yeah, I know. Dropping a pair at the Greenbrier tip-off. Only a couple of games left, Elo. Still not sure, though, that this team is ready for the gauntlet of the Big 12.
Here's my quick comment. Can we get some healthy bodies? When are we going to be healthy, Trace? I know.
You mean Jalen Sellers when you speak healthy?
Yes, that's the guy.
Day to day, says Johnny Dawkins. I wanted to say to him, but I didn't do it after the last game. You've been saying day to day for week to week.
That's pretty funny.
Saying that
all right, so does UCF have a game? When's their next game?
Sunday against Tarleton.
What's more likely, that we get somebody back, either Sellers or Mikey Williams, or UCF has named a head coach by that point?
That they've named a head coach, but I think they would have liked to have had one or both back before conference play.
I do. I think it's important. They got to get Sellers back. You got to get him some reps, man. I just worry about the team the way it is right now without Sellers. I'm not sure they could really be at the high level competing at the Big 12. But that's my only thing is, can we get healthy and then we start evaluating this team? That's my thoughts.
Elo, how do we go 27 minutes into this show and not talk about the other coaching move of the week?
Volleyball. Jenny Maurer, after 2 seasons, dismissed as head coach of the volleyball program, Trace. Perhaps a surprise from a timing standpoint. It broke during the basketball game on Sunday. Your reaction, Trace?
I know the results were not good this year. I think that she was hired late into the cycle, didn't complete her contract. I would have liked to have seen her have opportunity to, build with the recruits that she had, but clearly not a factor for Terry Mahadra. He didn't want to have that patience to see what another year would be like. So that search, which we haven't heard anything about either, and I know it's less important than the football one, but a new direction for volleyball after a new direction just, some 2 years ago.
Great person, Jenny Maurer. We both liked her.
Yeah.
Was a great assistant. Her legacy will be part of that 5 conference championships. She brought in McKenna Melville. I would have given her the 3rd year. I think the administration felt that the program took steps backwards so far that they felt it wasn't fixable in a year. Who knows? I mean, that's an agree to disagree type of situation. Too much. We don't have enough time to go there. I'm going to give you a name, though, Trace, to keep an eye. Julie Darty Dennis, Mississippi State head coach.
Yeah. Mentioned the last time.
Last time, her sister is a principal locally here in Central Florida. Her parents have had season tickets to UCF. That's a name to watch. But again, what we don't know is, what is UCF offering in volleyball from a salary standpoint and NIL? I've heard their NIL is not very good. I spoke to a volleyball person. They went from a good mid-major job to a mid-major to below average power conference volleyball job because of the lack of resources. That's going to have to be addressed during the search.
Quick note about softball, Elo. Schedule out.
I
see Oklahoma on there?
I thought that's why we were doing this live show. It was going to be a breakdown of the softball schedule coming out. I was fooled here. Listen, it is a challenging schedule. You're right. We go to Oklahoma during our Big 12.
Oklahoma was done.
No, we're not done with them. I don't know why, but we're not. Hey, Coach Ball Malone wants to schedule tough. We got Georgia opening weekend. Remember how special those 2 games have been a couple of years ago with Shannon Doherty's walk-off. That's huge. Oklahoma State comes here. It is a challenging schedule for a very young team, but Coach Ball Malone, by far the toughest scheduler from a UCF coach in any sport, by far.
Something to look forward to. Let's welcome back in Adam. What did we get right? What did we get wrong?
All right, guys, you moved way too fast. But Terry Mahadra's previous football hires include Brian Harsin, Blake Anderson, Butch Jones, and now Gus Malzahn. We'll see how he does on this one. You guys about the Gus tenure. I'd posit for you a good would have been the TCU win this year. You missed one of the worst ECU loss, which would have secured UCF potentially a college game day opportunity. Elo, you said you're wearing a jacket in honor of Scott Frost. Why?
Well, more of a fleece jacket. He used to wear those from time to time in cold weather games.
I don't know if it's because it was cold and it was frost. I didn't get the joke there.
Yes, that was the Frosty. Yes, Adam. Yes.
Okay. Tarleton State in basketball, rather 3-7 on the season. Probably not a tough one. And I think, gentlemen, not only is this the first ever live Around the Kingdom, first ever Around the Kingdom without Family Feud in the background. So congratulations, friends. Hope you enjoyed this particular edition.
All right, one more thing before we go. This is hard for me to say. Basketball block parties are back, Elo. Starts with Kansas at UCF men's basketball, January 5 out there at the Plaza. Some excitement before the basketball games. All right, look for new episodes midweek every week on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. Drops later wherever you get your audio feeds. Stay with us. We're going to reset while we're live so that we can record Around the Kingdom overtime. For Eric Lopez and Adam Eaton, I'm Trylko. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for this week's Around the Kingdom. All right. There we go. We're back. Hello, everybody. Trylko, joined by Adam Eaton, Eric Lopez. We continue the conversation on Around the Kingdom overtime. An important topic, Elo, that Adam brought to my attention is that we end each of our segments with a boom. Do we retire that boom? And if so, maybe some audience comments here. What do we go to, Elo, if we retire the boom?
Oh, it depends who the new coach is and what his slogan is. That'd be a factor. Although I'm not, a boom can always stick around. I mean, other people have used boom. I don't think that's exclusive to just Gus. I mean, other people have used boom. Mark Daniels, I remember, in fact, the famous Mike Hughes touchdown against South Florida in 2017 used boom himself. So I don't think this is exclusive. I think we have a lot of people use boom.
Adam, how about Florida State dropping a boom in their announcement of Gus Malzahn coming to Tallahassee?
Do you guys get the sense that Florida State feels like they pulled one over on UCF here? Like, we stole Gus from you. We got the guy. Like, I get the sense that they think they pulled one over on us. Yes?
I don't know. I watched some of their coverage. Some of them are just as perplexed as we are. Like, what? What is he? Why did he?
You stole the OC off a 4-18?
Right. I think there's a little confusion on everybody's involvement here. I don't know. It's a little strange. But.
All right, guys. So we had a 2-minute segment there, 2 minutes, 3-minute segment. Let's talk a little bit more about this Scott Frost situation. Do you think there's some legs to this as we change each day the name of the coach that may surface as UCF's next head football coach? Is Scott Frost a viable consideration here, Adam?
Look, I think there are legs to it. I think we're all hearing enough things behind the scenes that tell you that there's legs to this. Here's my thing, though, right? So if you want to tell me in the year of 2024 that Terry Mohajir sits down and says, I'm evaluating all these candidates, and in 2024, the 2024 version of Scott Frost is the best coach for UCF, I'm fine with that. What I don't want Terry Mohajir or anybody to do is say the 2017 version of Scott Frost is the best coach for UCF, because that guy's not coming back. The players aren't the same. The conference isn't the same. Nothing is the same with 2017. So if you're hiring Scott Frost in 2024 because of what he did in 2017, I think that's a mistake. But if you're looking at Scott Frost of 2024 and say, I like his system, I like what he's learned, I like what he brings to the table, all the other data points that you want to point to, I'm good with that. But we can't hire Scott Frost because of what he was in 2017. I want to hire him because of what he is in 2024. And if Timo evaluates that right now and says what he brings to the table right now is the best for UCF, I'm fine with that. But don't hire him because he was great 7 years ago. Hire him because you think he can be great today and he can be great tomorrow. If you don't think that, then I think it's a mistake to bring him in. But if you do think that's legit and that's accurate, then I'm good with it. But I don't want to do nostalgia just for the sake of nostalgia.
Elo, how much of his 5-year tenure at Nebraska factors into his higher ability here? Doesn't he need another? I don't know what's he doing over there. With the
he's hanging out with Sean McVay. That's good enough. You know how many people get jobs by just hanging out with Sean McVay? I mean,
doesn't he need to get back in somewhere, OC, a coaching job at FAU, something before he makes that triumphant return to Orlando?
Not necessarily. I've always thought that Scott wanted to coach in the pros. So to me, I think it's UCF or he stays in the pros, in my opinion. I think this is the one place. I generally think he fell in love with this place, and it was hard for him to leave. The only reason he left was his alma mater. I think nobody should be surprised.
You're seeming to gloss over that there was talk of him going to Gainesville too.
That never Nebraska was. That was just all innuendo stuff. He was not.
You don't think he'd have considered that seriously if Nebraska wasn't a factor?
I don't. I don't think so. I think Nebraska was always going to be the destination he wanted to go to.
I'd like to quibble with that for a second, Elo. I'll find the clip, but Mike and I had Sean Beckton on the Sons UCF podcast at some point, probably about 6-8 months ago. And he told us there was a story that they were in a room at the coaching staff of 2017 talking about the options and where they want it to go. And that Frost said, we either go together or we don't go at all. Nebraska seemed to be that place, but in that room, at least he led us to believe that other schools were mentioned. How serious that were, I don't know, but that it wasn't just, hey, it's Nebraska or bust. There were other options that they were considering at that point in time.
Well, first of all, send my best to Mike, and second of all, can you make sure tell him that his Yankees better sign Juan Soto?
Otherwise, I'm sure he's all over it right now. I'm sure he's all over it. Yeah.
Look, that might be true, but we don't know how much of that is leverage and stuff.
Fair.
But nobody could be surprised that Scott Frost's name got floated, right? Like that was the most predictable thing that was going to happen, especially when you have a lot of alums that are loyal to him, even donors that are still loyal to him. I'm not surprised one bit.
How much of Scott's success, though, was because of Mackenzie Milton, and how much of the interest in bringing Scott Frost back to UCF is we might also get Mackenzie Milton in the deal?
I think it has to do more with, hey, maybe I can bring the next Mackenzie Milton here than Mackenzie Milton. I think that's the key.
You've seen a lot of people naming them as a team that with Scott Frost, you get Mackenzie Milton back as a
I think that makes sense. That would make sense. Probably Sean Beckton stays on, right? I mean, that's fair. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. Now, I don't think I have him on my top of my list, but I think Scott would be motivated. Don't you think he'd be motivated to atone? I don't think it's the worst idea. I just find that weird, right? That's very weird if you're Terry Mohajir that you hire somebody that was already here. Like, how much do you it's a very interesting to Adam's point on that. But I think he does bring casuals interest there, don't you? Like, he's more interesting than, say, the Penn State coordinator that nobody can name. I mean, are we sure that, have you noticed we have not seen the Penn State offensive coordinator and Steve Karnacki in the same room? I think they're the same guy personally, but so I think he would bring some interest here. Don't you? Casual fans would be excited.
For a little bit. How much of a national name does he have? I mean, when you talk Scott Frost in Nebraska, you talk about all of their very painful one score or less losses in the final moments of games and their inability to turn things around under him. I don't know what juice you think the casual fan is their interest is.
I think they would, because that was the peak of when people were talking UCF football nationally. That was the peak. That's what they relate to him. He was the national coach of the year, by the way. It wasn't like
How can he live back up to that standard? Now you got to go perfect. That's the standard that he's got to live up to if he comes back.
I don't know about perfect, but I think contend in the Big 12. And I've always felt that his system would fit better in the Big 12 than it did in the Big 10. I don't think that was in Nebraska. I mean, obviously, it turns out he couldn't get enough players there. I think he had some bad luck there in Nebraska, too. They were there. I'm not saying, like I said, look, no matter who comes in here to UCF, guys, there's going to be questions. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be John Summerall. It could be whoever you bring in is going to bring a question mark. There is no slam dunk here.
So just so I get it. So you're confusing Andy Kotelnicki with Steve Kornacki.
Hey, exactly.
You're doing the name thing. Okay, I'm with you there.
Am I not wrong? When have you seen those two in the same room?
I have never. I don't.
Is anybody trying to see the
checkmate? No,
the same
checkmate.
room?
You got me there. The only thing with the team, so yes, Scott Frost could re-energize the fan base. Yes, he could do a lot of things. Yes, he could come at the cheap. But here's the thing: if it doesn't work out, guess what we're going to do? We're getting rid of Scott Frost, and guess who's doing that? The guy who replaces Terry Mohajir. This is Terry Mohajir's hire at UCF. Either makes or breaks him. So you bring Scott Frost in and he fails miserably, the next guy is replacing Scott Frost, not you, Terry. So that's the thing, is you've got to be sure this is your guy and he's ready right now. Because if not, one of you two is picking the next coach, because Terry Mohajir ain't going to be here.
He'll be back on the previous show, we were part of the search firm.
He'll be back at Arkansas State.
I have a
or wherever else.
I have a list ready to go.
Get your list ready to go.
Are we missing some obvious connection? You mentioned in Around the Kingdom, Adam, coaches hired by Terry Mohajir in his previous stop. Are we missing some obvious ones? Didn't Blake Anderson just part ways?
Yeah, he's not doing so well, though. He's got a lawsuit happening out of Utah State. I don't think that's going to work. I think a name we're not talking enough about. And so the theory that's been posited is that we haven't assigned a coach now because that coach is doing something this upcoming weekend, coaching some sort of a championship game. And we keep talking about John Summerall, Steve Kornacki's best friend, Andy Kotelnicki. I don't think we're talking enough about Barry Odom. I think Barry Odom at UNLV has some ties to Cartwright. Obviously had coaching experience at Missouri. While it didn't go maybe as well as he wanted there, does anyone know who his OC was back then, by the way? One Josh Heupel was his OC back at Missouri, right? So I'm not saying I want Barry Odom, by the way, but I think we're skating over Barry Odom's candidacy at this point in time. And here's the thing I would tell you: if you meet anybody right now who tells you who UCF's head coach is going to be, feel free to shove them to the ground because they are lying to you. Because I don't think anybody at this point knows exactly who that coach is.
There's a lot of
all right. Let me ask you this
on.
question. It was a conversation point I heard, I believe Bailey say on Pegasus Live there, that maybe he doesn't trust Terry Mohajir with this decision. And that seems to be a thread of conversation amongst some in the fan base. Adam, I'll begin with you here. Fair or unfair on that? And if there's a lack of trust, what is that built upon, do you think?
I think that's unfair. And I think it's unfair for a few reasons. One, obviously, we're going to talk about Jenny Maurer as a bad hire. We're going to talk about Satia Mester maybe not being the right hire. But those are different sports than football. We all, at this point in time, everybody nationally thought Gus Malzahn would be a good hire for UCF, and it just didn't work out. We can all admit to that now. We can all agree to that. I think Gus.
You were skeptical, were you not?
I wasn't a fan of the retread. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the retread. I felt like we could have gone younger, could have done something a little bit different than Gus Malzahn.
Do you consider Barry Odom a retread as a failed hire at
I do. Now, I don't think UCF does, because I think UCF thinks that he's rehabilitated himself from Missouri by going to UNLV. But here's the question I'd ask both of you, and you don't have to answer this, by the way. Is Barry Odom good? Or is Brendan Marion, his OC, good? Is that what's really driving UNLV? Again, Brendan Marion, a hot candidate, maybe up for open jobs. I think he's a Tulsa alum, which sounds odd. Somebody went to Tulsa, but I think he actually did. Maybe he's up for that open job, although apparently they have no NIL, so do with that what you will. I think the Terry Mohajir distrust is just because of Gus. Because of the things that happened with Gus, not hearing from him right now. I think that's what's driving the mistrust from Terry Mohajir. I don't think 18 months ago, I think if you ask people if they trust Terry Mohajir, I don't think they would have said no. And the only thing that's changed in 18 months is just that Gus Malzahn turned out to not be the right coach for UCF.
All right, Elo, the contrast, though, is with Danny White, right? And Danny White had a record of success in hiring coaches. I know there's some dings on him about future scheduling, but he's gone on to success at Tennessee. I think that's the contrast. That's the shadow, which, by the way, bringing back Scott Frost puts that shadow of 2017 over Terry Mohajir. I think he needs greater separation, and I think he comes across differently to the fan base than Danny White, more polished, just a different kind of approach to his position. And I think that's what leads to some of that distrust.
I think people don't understand, though, that as an athletic director hire, you got to be just as lucky as good. Like, everybody feels like Danny White was this magic wand and every hire was fantastic. We all remember that Scott Frost wasn't even his first choice. Might not have been his second best choice. His first choice was Greg Schiano. You think we would have had UC fast if Greg Schiano was the head coach? I don't think so. Depending on who you ask, some people think he wanted Dino Babers, and that's how that whole thing blew up. So you got to be lucky on this stuff. Hey, how did Greg Lovelady's hire work out? Not as well as maybe they would have thought. There are some people in this chat room that don't think that Johnny Dawkins was a great hire. Right? Dolly, my good friend, how you doing? JP Gilbert, my good friend as well. So who knows?
They've come around. They've come around.
I think JP likes that. I think JP
for now. Let's see.
This is true for now. If they stumble in the Big 12, that's all going to go away.
What happens if we lose by 20 in Lubbock on opening night of the Big 12 on New Year's Eve? But my point is, you got to be lucky sometimes, better than good. Everybody understood the Gus Malzahn hire, from Terry. I don't think everybody was, maybe there were some questions, but people like that. Did anybody question Nebraska hiring Scott Frost? I think Nebraska, you do that move 10 out of 10. It just didn't work out. So you got to be lucky sometimes. That is more important than being good in this situation.
All right, let me bring back a topic. I think it was our friend Eric Edwards who posed it as a mailbag question. I don't remember. We do so many different things. But was UCF unlucky, Elo, during the Gus Malzahn tenure? And I contrast that. I agree with you. If not for J.J. Wharton's catch at Temple, there are some things that have to bounce your way, which, by the way, I think makes it more difficult for Scott Frost to come back in, right, and try to achieve 2017, because a lot of things had to go right during that season to have that level of perfection. But should we revisit the Gus Malzahn tenure from a lucky, unlucky standpoint? I don't know that I've moved on it, but I agree with you that you do need some luck. I think you have to create some of your own luck, and I think that there were mistakes made by Coach Malzahn and others on his staff that didn't put themselves in position to benefit from luck.
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. I think that's well said. Like I said, the KJ Jefferson deal. If you get KJ Jefferson 2022, maybe UCF has a better year. But for whatever reason, 2024 KJ was a completely different guy, and that did not work out, and then some. So, yeah, I do agree with you. I think some of it is luck, some of it is your own doing. We'll see what happens with the next hire, but to suggest that you don't trust an AD hire because of what they did with rowing, for example, like his hire of the rowing coach was well received. Does that mean he's going to get the football coach right now? They're apples and oranges. I think it's kind of like what Adam said.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, there are a lot of smart people who cover football and cover athletics in general. Nobody knows if any hire is going to be good. As much as we all think we do, nobody knows. Anytime you hire somebody, nobody knows if that's going to work. There are a lot of slam dunks. Scott Frost was considered a slam dunk to Nebraska, right? There's a lot of slam dunk hires that don't end up working out. The reality is you never know until you have a chance to get that person into the seat, into the the rhythm of whatever that sport is. So all this is really challenging because there's no chance that you're going to really fully know that until you get to the season. But what you want to understand is establish what your AD or what your school is about. I've heard a lot about, listen, we're talking about offense and UCF fast, all this stuff. And again, tip of the cap to JP Gilbert, the football prophet, as he likes to be known now, who said something I thought was very interesting. That's a true. Yeah. That's
football
is that trademark?
That's a fact.
Did he trademark that?
I mean, he's a lawyer. He can do what he wants to do. This hire for UCF football needs to be about culture first. Build a culture of UCF. Who is it? What is this program? What do we stand for? Who are we? Then worry about scheme, worry about the offense, the defense you're running, but build the culture, build the foundation of this program first. There's been a lot of scheme-based hires. This person runs a fast offense. This person runs a fast tempo. Hire for culture, learn for scheme, or get scheme after the fact. And I think that's the thing that separates maybe the good ADs, the good hirers, if you will, versus the bad hirers of athletics coaches. Bailey and Christian talked about last night on the Pegasus podcast. I think it was Christian who said that Danny White's first question of every candidate that he ever spoke to was, how are you going to win in year one? I don't care about year 2, 3, and 4. Tell me right now how you're going to win. I think it all depends about what you're looking for as an AD. And maybe that's one area where Terry hasn't necessarily proven himself yet. But I also don't know if he's had enough time to do that.
How would you describe the culture, though, over 4 seasons with Gus Malzahn? I mean, remember, we got to go back to 2015 where it really felt like, and you guys on the Sunspot had a lot of conversations about team quitting on George O'Leary and needing a new voice and a new energy. I never really got the sense that players quit on the team. I mean, there were the exodus to the portal, but that's some of the changing nature of college football and that opportunity that exists for those players. But how would you describe, Adam, the culture, maybe not specifically this season at 4-8, but over Gus Malzahn's tenure?
Listen, I hate to keep stealing from other people's words, but I'll steal a phrase that Dolly Drama told us on Sunday, Trace, which is chaotic. I feel like the 4 years of Gus was chaotic. There was always a battle of position. There's always who's playing this week, who's calling the plays, who's in charge, who's leaving, who's coming, who's going. And maybe some of that is the era we're in now. I would say chaotic. I feel like every couple of weeks there was some new sort of controversy or concern. And I don't know how much the culture ever really settled in because we changed so much. I was on the 10-12 podcast this week and they asked me about Gus. And I said something that at the time, what I told Philip and Andy was, this is going to sound very oxymoronic, but Gus Malzahn, in my view, was both too resistant to change, but also changed too much. Like, we did too much to change all the time, but he also wasn't open to change. The change was the Spider-Man meme. The change was Chimp Lindsey to Darren Hinshaw. The change was Travis Williams to Addison Williams. There wasn't a lot of change from a cultural standpoint. It was just a lot of change.
Well, how much of that though is how much of that is depending on the portal as much as he did and missing on the portal as much. I think that's a factor. Like in the portal, you got to hit it correctly to kind of have that chemistry. And I don't think we ever had that in the last 2 years. You don't play the young guys that you recruited, that you did a boom for, but then you play these transfer guys that don't work out. Arizona State is in the title game because Kenny Dillingham hit on more transfer guys. They flipped the roster in just 2 years. So he was able to figure it out, but Gus couldn't figure that out. And maybe depended too much on the transfer. So I think that played a role too. And that's something, to your point, that Scott Frost didn't have to deal with, is the portal in 2017. How is that going to work?
Well, but he dealt with it at Nebraska. right?
Not well.
Well, and when we were talking during the Around the Kingdom show, we talked about Gus's legacy. What is it? 8 quarterbacks over 4 seasons, and there was fan dislike of the Mikey Keene situation, revealed a little bit more forthcomingly by SJ Tui during that very
JP Gilbert
exciting
with the exclusive there.
JP Gilbert helm.
Do we know who JP wants as the head
prophet.
coach, by the way? Do we know what the football prophet wants as a head? He's been quiet, very quiet.
He has been. Well, he's working on new material now. He's had to retire the retirement home in Arkansas. It's from JP that I learned about the term sundowning. I didn't know about that term beforehand. But
can you imagine him on a search for a coach? How would that go?
They should bring him in. But the 8 quarterbacks in 4 seasons. Heck, Elo, Adam, 4 quarterbacks this season. I mean, there were moments this season that were head scratching in the moment, even more so now. Elo, you said benching KJ Jefferson. Maybe they win if they play him against Cincinnati. They start a 17-year-old. They yank him out because of Johnny Richardson being accosted by the billionaire in the locker room before they ran out. And then you don't bring EJ Colson in for a play when you needed one guy to come in for one play at Iowa State. So, I mean, just the whole. It goes back to chaotic, Elo, but you got to get quarterback right, as Gus and Mike Norvell are going to find out in Tallahassee as well. You've got to get QB1 right.
You realize that KJ Jefferson ended up having the most wins for a starting quarterback at UCF this year? He got 3 wins. Everybody else got one since September. Like, maybe he was always the best quarterback at the time, and we just decided.
What's the record, Elo? What's the record with everything else is the same? KJ Jefferson plays all 12 games, no injury, better than 4-8.
Yeah, I think they win the Cincinnati game, and definitely I think they win that awful Utah game on Friday night. So I think if you think about that, switch those 2 games. You're playing in a bowl game.
Does Gus Malzahn stay at a bowl game at 6-6?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Does this get added to the future Suns episode of the greatest what ifs?
Have we done that yet? To be fair, KJ Jefferson beat New Hampshire and Sam Houston for 2 of those wins.
TCU.
To be fair, I mean the 2 of those wins.
8-4 TCU, by the way, and 8-4 TCU.
2 of those wins were maybe wins that you could have gotten with other quarterbacks.
You sure about that? I'm not so sure.
I think Dylan Rice could have pulled that out.
I hope. Let's hope. Here's the other what if. Here's the other what if.
What's the record with KJ Jefferson?
Well, I said it. I said 6-6.
No, I know you said Adam.
I'm going to 5-7.
Here's another what if.
But 6-6 is Gus looking to get out? Is the rebuild is concerning?
I think
Clay Pasco's face in the chat is fantastic.
That's a good question.
Here's the thing, though, Trace. Like I think. I've had some people tell me this week that, and you alluded to this earlier, Elo, that Gus was very downtrodden. He really thought this was going to work. He really wanted this to work. He really thought this was going to work. And as soon as it got off the rails, he was scrambling to find any way to get it back on track. And it just never figured it out for whatever reason. If it's his fault, the players he selected, I don't know the answer to all that. I'm not smart enough, but just never got it to work. And the grind of the season, the grind of NAL, the grind of I want to go to the portal. My dad's mad I'm not playing. I want to do more of this. The training staff mistreated me. I didn't get the right meal. Like, I think all of that grind was getting to Gus. I think even at 6-6, he thinks about dipping out.
I agree. No, I agree, because I think Gus really thought this team could contend for the Big 12 title. I think that was his hurrah. I don't think he was in this for the long haul, and I think it just – you're right. I think he still bails the way this thing would have played out. Just if for nothing else, just to get away from you, Trace. Let's be real. I mean, that takes its toll as well.
Wow. Yikes.
Yeah, okay.
He's right here. He's right here.
A couple weeks back,
he can hear you.
I think for 2 shows, actually, I recycled a topic the following week. Was Dylan Risk the answer at quarterback in 2025 for UCF? How's that topic look now, Elo?
No, not good. I do have a question.
Not entered the portal. He's not mentioned anything about entering the portal. We'll see what happens come Monday.
Still got time. Yeah, he's still got time. Got to figure out who the coach is. I do have a question.
Gets a fair shot, though, if he decides to stay.
Depends who the coach is. I mean, we got to see what the system they bring in. I do wonder, though. No, you want to talk about another what if? You mentioned EJ Colson. starting that game against Cincinnati, which was still kind of one of the more interesting, curious quarterback starts in the history of this program. What if he would have stuck with E.J. Colson? What would have happened? Would E.J. Colson still be here? Would the team have been better off? Like, I don't know. Maybe not. I know he was raw, but like, talk about a weird situation, because that kind of set its own tone. Because you wonder if you're E.J. Colson, you're like, wait a minute, I'm starting, but then I'm getting benched, and then I'm not with a redshirt, but I'm not, maybe that kind of set him to leave early. I don't know. That's the other weird part about it. It's not so much that KJ, my point is, it's not so much that KJ would have been this great quarterback. It's just the decisions after that, by benching him, by going with a kid, and EJ was 17 years old. You go with Jakari Brown, who's not better than, he's a better runner than KJ, but he's not a better thrower than KJ. The decisions in that Cincinnati game, to me, will always be baffling, in my opinion. I thought it was a complete panic attack.
Here's what I'll say. Just because the players left now doesn't mean they can't come back. And I think it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to monitor.
Always left, right, until that portal opens.
Even if the portal opens, you can lobby the new coach to return back to your school, right? So I'm curious how many, if any, of the players decide maybe they want. I've heard a couple of crazy scenarios. I don't know that I want any. Well, so that's a great question, honestly. I was thinking, who is the biggest loss from the portal, right? We saw a lot of guys go in the portal. You saw
what about
Jason
the first
Johnson,
wave of the portal?
Jason Johnson go in. There's two names that I maybe want back. I want Marcellus Marshall back. Caden Kittler was interesting to me as well. Now, I think the prevailing theory is that Herb Hand may follow Gus to FSU. If that's the case, the O-line may go with him. I don't know if Caden Kittler was exactly like the next Matt Lee, but he was a serviceable offensive lineman.
Stayed healthy for the most part, right?
And they're not, and look, 6'5", 300-pound guys just aren't growing on trees. So if you can find a few of them, it's better to hang on to them. I think those are probably the two on the O-line that I was most interested in. And if they would come back, I would absolutely welcome them with open arms.
Elo, who you bringing back? Xavier Townsend?
No. E.J. Colson. I think it's E.J. Colson. He was a talented quarterback. We need as many talented quarterbacks as you can get. So you have a little bit of diversity there. I would bring him back, depending on who the next.
Our friend Adrian Killens is in the. What's up, Adrian Killens? Hey, Scott Frost back, AK. All right.
Jeez, bring Adrian Killens into the show.
Yeah, what am I doing here?
Scott Frost.
Adam, get him on the show.
Adrian, you want to go on the show? I'm not sure how to get in touch with him. I don't really know.
Bring Adrian Killens into the show.
Send me a DM, AK. I don't. Yeah, we'll get you in here. I mean, I don't know what to. Yeah, we're doing this live.
But this is this. I mean, these are alums. Alums, man, want Scott Frost, man, and they're loyal, man. There's a bond. That's a real legit bond, and I think guys like Adrian would help the program if Scott was back.
We're going to talk about this enough. Adrian Killens really is a legend for UCF, right? Because he started this whole entire UCF fast phenomenon. Not just because he's listening, by the way, but because he legitimately started this whole UCF fast phenomenon.
So I have a column that right now is on Frozen because of this whole coaching change. I was going to write about R.J. Harvey and his legacy, and I was going through a bunch of running backs. I think Adrian Killens, you can make the argument his career is a top 6 running back of all time at UCF and should be in the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame when he's eligible. And I'm not just saying that because he's here. His number, if you look at his numbers, he is legit. Like he was fantastic. He's a top 6 back. I don't want to give it away too much because at some point I will write that. I will run that column maybe in the next few days. Maybe
you didn't want it to get lost amidst all this coaching.
Something.
The point you were making about R.J. Harvey a week ago that maybe he gets lost a little bit because of the performance of the team. You certainly can't say that with Adrian Killens.
No.
Right?
No, and that's kind of you must have read my article somehow, even though it's not published yet. That is one of the points I make, is that I think R.J. Harvey will get lost as time went on because of the lack of winning. Similar to a friend of Adam, who Adam has had on the Suns show before.
Yeah, where's the campaign stand?
New year. It's a new year for the campaign. I have a quick AK story while he's still listening in here. So I have a dilemma too. Trace knows this dilemma. I recorded an interview with somebody before this coaching search that now is going to get lost if I release it in any time in the near future. It's a great conversation though. And this individual talks about watching the game UCF had against Michigan and seeing AK take that sweep up the right sideline and saying to himself, "Oh my God, I've got to get involved with this school, with this program." And I think to your point, Elo, about setting the culture and a Hall of Famer, it's those intangibles that I don't think you can overstate what some of these guys did under the Frost era. And I think AK is a huge example of that.
The first recruit, I believe, that committed to Scott.
I think that's right, actually. Yes. I think that's actually right.
Confirm that age range. Since you're
Does a Scott Frost coach bring back at Adrian Killens in some capacity?
Wow.
You'd want to restore culture. That would be a guy to help you with that. And I remember being at that game with that run, Adam, and it was just electrifying.
What about the Memphis run in the regular season game? The Memphis run in the regular
yards,
season.
96 yards, I think.
Yeah, breathtaking. And that's the thing. He has memorable plays that you will remember. What are the memorable plays you're going to remember about R.J. Harvey?
No, now we're not going to stand for this R.J. Harvey.
Let's not do that.
No, but my point is that
Cincinnati touchdown when we finally beat them in 2023, 2.
But it's going to be a lot harder, kind of like Alex Haynes. It's a lot harder to get his highlights because they happen in losses. And
Oklahoma State touchdown when he broke that 96-yarder in the rain.
Correct. It's correct.
We just talked about players coming back. Which coaches would you want to see on the current staff back as part of a new staff? For me, it'd be Sean Beckton. I think that's a go-to guy.
That's a good one.
In every coaching staff. Somebody else. I would have preferred a Herb Hand remain because I think he does a good job with the offensive line, but that may not be in the way.
I've heard what Adam just mentioned earlier, that I think he's going to follow Gus to FSU. Usually, Gus is the offensive coordinator. He'll probably get to pick that hire for Herb. I'll say this: if John Sumrall is the guy, he worked with Darren Hinshaw at Kentucky. That could be somebody that stays if Sumrall is the guy, because there's rumors that Sumrall's quarterback coach might go back to Tulane, Houston, to go with Willie Fritz, who he used to coach with. So that could be something there. Who knows? I like the Sean Beckton answer. He's about as versatile of a coach as it gets.
I like that continuity of an athletics Hall of Famer, a guy that's been involved in multiple administrations.
But again, it depends on who the head coach is. If it's G.J. Kenny, that helps Cam Martin's chances.
That was Sunday's coach, Elo. It's midweek.
Because I can't revisit it. We can't revisit it. It can never pull back.
On behalf of Clay Pasco, who's yelling at me in the chat, Dolly has, I think, the 4 that a lot of people would look at: Cam Martin, Sean Beckton, Kenny Martin, Trovon Reed as the.
It's not going to be 4, right? 1 to 2 max, right?
Says who, Trace?
It depends. Again, it depends who the coach is.
Let's, as we get close to wrapping this up, real quick on this one, guys. Of the open jobs, what's Purdue, West Virginia, North Carolina, UCF? Where do you put the UCF job? Just based on what you know about the programs from afar, the resources, the pedigree of the programs. I know a lot of UCF fans say it's the top job.
No, I think North
Carolina would be the top.
Yeah, North Carolina is with all the resources they have is number one. I think if you call it, quote, a negative, the only negative is it's obviously shadowed with the big time basketball program. But North Carolina is going to have, I think eventually he's going to go to the SEC or the Big Ten, and that's where you want to be. I think
even though UCF has not fared well against West Virginia, don't you think the UCF job is better than the West Virginia job?
Depends. Depends. West Virginia may have more resources financially there. Who knows? I think that's probably your debate. I think we all could agree Purdue's number 4 on that list by far. I'm not sure anybody. To me, I don't think you can win there, especially in this new age Big Ten. But I do think UCF, West Virginia. I think UCF I would give the slight edge over West Virginia.
Robert is now producing the show. We are not close to wrapping this up, Trace. What are we gonna do? Just talk all night? Is that what we're doing now?
We might. I think. Look, I think get Purdue out of here, right? I don't want to hear Purdue in my life. I think that's in a Big Ten environment like that. We're not doing that.
There's no chance of succeeding ever.
No,
at Purdue in the Big Ten.
Yeah, not so much. I think West Virginia, obviously, I think they have a lot of charm, I guess I'll say. But can you recruit to West Virginia? Can you really make that a winner? Like that's
that's where Don Knotts is from. Adam, come on.
Well, I mean,
we learned last week.
Was he a good football coach? I don't even really know. I'm not really sure.
They have success in other sports, though, right? Elo, baseball, they've had success.
They're definitely a big basketball.
Soccer.
Program. Yeah, UCF can't win to save their life in that state right now, so that's a problem.
North Carolina has money, and that's the only thing that concerns me. They have money there now. They're typically a basketball school, but they have money, and so I don't. That one I'm not.
Are we paying much attention to their search, or are all these names the same names on everybody's board?
There's some similar names. I mean, Summerall's been linked there. So has Ryan Silverfield. Interesting, so there's the North Carolina has had similar names. There's probably a couple other extra guys they have on their list. And that makes me wonder, like, is UCF waiting to get an answer, or do they know they have a guy? And we're never going to know the answer to that because everybody always says, oh, we got our guy, even though that might have been the sixth option. But
Well,
I do wonder, I do wonder if
Summerall.
somewhere debating. Yeah.
You talk somewhere, Elo. Their AD came out today. Tulane's AD came out and said, I hear you, Green Wave Nation. We hope Summerall's here for a long time. Things are being worked on right now. Trust us. Right. So I would assume that's in direct response to the other fan.
Did Danny White ever do that during the Scott Frost time there and all the rumors? I don't think Danny did that. Remember that day, Trace, when that awkwardness when we won the championship and then they called us back because, hey, we're going to have a presser because Scott's about to announce he's leaving. That was really weird. And Danny White was there. It was kind of interesting day in UCF lore.
TV ratings question for you, Elo. How well does the Arizona State-Iowa State matchup do?
Well, the good news
you made reference to tickets. Are tickets not because Iowa State travels pretty well?
It's Dallas, brother. It's Jerry's World. I mean, are you kidding me? That's not. It ain't Oklahoma or Texas. That's the problem. So, plenty of seats available right now if you want to go. I mean, shoot. Are you guys paying Robert to go? Because why is he going? Like, what? They're not there. Okay.
He lives there. Yeah.
I mean,
he just loves the Cowboys.
I heard Elo negotiating there. What? There's a travel budget.
He wants to see a team win in Jerry World.
Well, the irony
very often.
Trace,
Robert will get to see either Arizona State or Iowa State win for the second time.
Listen, it'll be cool. Listen, Robert, if the WWE presents the winning team with a WWE title belt like they did last year with Texas, make sure you get a photo of that and send that over to me, especially if it's a wrestler there. But look, that's not the ideal matchup the Big 12 wanted. We all know they wanted Colorado, and certainly the TV people did.
BYU, Colorado.
Anything with Colorado, Oklahoma State. You know they drew over 3 million on Friday, Colorado and Oklahoma State. I'm going to go on record saying, even though it's not out there, UCF, Utah, not going to come close to that number. They're going to come close to Adam's prediction on Suns Live, which was, what was the number you said? Or 500?
500.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, we got Clay.
Clay Pasco.
Clay Pasco needing some.
Do you want to come back, Clay? I mean, now you're here. You might as well. I mean, the Band-Aid's ripped off at this point.
I was trying to go to another tab and it ended up putting me in.
Well, here you are.
Sorry, guys. I didn't.
This is what happens on the live show. If this was recorded, it would have been edited out. That's
well. To your point, Elo.
I love your tweet.
Oklahoma State, Colorado is like the only game on at noon. They didn't have to compete.
It was a terrible game.
It was a terrible game.
But that's going to help the Big 12 title game as there's not a lot of competition that day. So they'll still draw decently. I don't think it'll be as good as the Texas-Oklahoma State numbers last year. But
Elo, they need to grow new brands, and Arizona State, Iowa State give them an opportunity. Arizona State new to the league to grow brand and profile for the Big 12.
Sure, and the winner gets the 12 or 11 seed in the playoff and, probably not get a bye unless UNLV upsets Boise on Friday night. If that's the case, now all of a sudden the winner of the Big 12 title game gets a bye in the playoff.
How about we decide UCF's next coach on who wins their championship game appearance?
Maybe we should have Robert interview, try to get Kenny Dillingham to come here. Maybe is that the real reason you guys have him over there? Is this like a secret work that he's trying to get one of those coaches to come here? How do we know that? How do we know that's not the case?
I can't confirm or deny it.
Okay.
I really know.
Clay, who do you want?
Who do I want? Like anyone all time, or like do I have to pick from like who's available?
Jesus,
is that?
Well, we're gonna say Nick Saban's not available.
Garrett Bryant, by the way.
I like Summerall. I feel like he's the easy get. As I've been saying on Twitter, I don't want You got to prove that he can lose at the power forward level.
Say it again, Clay. You froze up there. Say it again.
I just said I don't want a flamed out coach. Like Auburn that Gus was. Proving that they can lose.
Does that mean you don't want
not win?
He doesn't want Dan Mullen.
You don't want Jamie Chatwell then, because he is a flame head coach right now.
Oh,
that's a good one.
See, this is why we've gone too long. The show when we're pulling out those lines. All right, we'll be back for Sons of UCF Live, the show we do every week live.
Is that going to be live?
It's going to be live.
Wow.
As we speak, Elo, we're not quite sure the guest list. We don't know quite the topics. We don't know what we're doing just yet.
Could have a head coach in place by then. Who knows?
We could debut a new show where Adam and I talk about the rundown for Sons of UCF. Try and figure out the guest list. Want to thank.
I think the
Adam.
show could be me trying to get Adrian Killen to the last 10 minutes on the show, which is not.
Yeah, can we get Adrian Killens on
efforting.
Sons of UCF Live to advocate for Scott Frost?
Yes.
Yeah. That sounds like
awesome.
That's
any
number of former players might come on to talk Scott Frost. All right, for Adam Eaton, Eric Lopez, Clay Pasco, I'm Trylko. Thanks for being with us for this week's Around the Kingdom Overtime.
Adios.